Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. On this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, and of course the most important updates are coming from Kursk direction. As you can see, we have finally adjusted the map because according to different mappers we can see significant progress of armored forces of Ukraine. The Ukrainians, according to different mappers, pro-Ukrainian and neutral, managed to capture significant number of towns and cities, and right now on the 9th of August it's very important to understand contested area, where is contested area, where is the gray zone, and where is the cities and the positions of armored forces of Ukraine where their presence was 100% geolocated. So that means that we have adjusted the map and we have colored the territory, and two colors for now. The let's say gray cloud is the contested area, the territory that was the territories that were captured by the Ukrainians according to different mappers without any geolocations that can confirm this. Furthermore, we have the yellow color. This is the territory that was captured by the Ukrainians, and we have the Ukrainian presence exactly in this area. So first let's discuss the territory that was captured by the Ukrainians for 100%. We have during the previous 12 hours additional videos, additional geolocations, additional pictures that confirm this. For example, in this small photo we can see the Ukrainian soldier who was located inside of Ukrainian armored vehicle and who was making the photo right in front of the sign Lyubimovka. So this is the village Lyubimovka. The Ukrainian soldier was located exactly in this point and he was waving his hands. So that means that Lyubimovka 100% was captured by the Ukrainians, including the village of Толстый Lug. In this photo we can see the same. The Ukrainian soldier from special forces was making a photo right in front of the village by the name of Nova Ivanovka. Based on this photo we have adjusted the map as well. Also, we have summarized the videos and the pictures that we received yesterday. Let's take a look at them once again. In this video, we can see the moment when the Russians were bombing the Ukrainian positions with the Krasnopol strikes, shells. In this video, we can see the Russian Iskander strike that also confirms the Ukrainian control over these three lines. In this video that was published yesterday, we can see the Ukrainian armored vehicles that were moving along this road and that were hit as a result of Russian artillery strike. As for these geolocations, as you can see, we haven't adjusted the map exactly in this point because we need, at least for this territory, additional details. But anyway, the Ukrainians most likely managed to reach this line, this territory, through the villages of Malaya Loknya, Viktorovka, Nikolaevka, and Staraya Sorochina. So as for the northern flank, everything is clear. And let's see another important thing. Sverdlikova. Yesterday there was a geolocation of how the Russians were FPV droning the significant number of Ukrainian armored vehicles exactly in the area of this village. Based on this geolocation, we have adjusted the map inside above this territory. So as for Ukrainian controlled territory, geolocated territory, everything is clear. We see that there are lots of territories that are contested, and there are lots of territories and villages that are already under complete Ukrainian control. Now let's talk about Sudzha. As for Sudzha, we have additional geolocations that we received during the previous night. In this video, we can see a significant number of armored vehicles that were located along the road between Sumy area and Sudzha itself, and we see the process, how the Russians were landsetting the Ukrainian armored vehicles, how they were damaging and destroying them. Based on this video, we can make a conclusion that the Ukrainians answered Sudzha. Obviously, furthermore, during the previous 12 hours, we got the video of Russian drone flying above the most western part of Sudzha. We see that the Russians are trying to conduct reconnaissance operations, probably trying to understand the number and the quantity of the Ukrainians inside of the western part. We see the Ukrainian soldiers are moving from one building to another, probably conducting clearing operation, or maybe they were trying to steal some TVs, computers, I don't know. Anyway, this video confirms the Ukrainian presence along Polevaya Street. And yesterday yesterday we were talking about the Ukrainian landing operation exactly in this point, and we discussed yesterday the movement of Ukraine armored vehicle along the road towards the village of Kasacha Lokhna. So based on these geolocations, we have adjusted the map in the vicinity of Sudzha. So as you can see, currently the territory that is contested is much bigger than the territory that was confirmed by different geolocations. It doesn't mean that contested area is not the territory under Ukraine control. We're just saying that for now it's better to let's say follow both maps, both areas, either contested area and the geolocated one. So we have figured out everything about the situation. Now let's talk about details on the ground. According to information, most likely you were following the situation on the ground that took place, that been taking place during the previous 12 hours, during the previous nights of Ukrainian time, Moscow time. And I believe that you have mentioned that the narrative for the previous 12 hours was that everything is okay, that according to the Russians everything is okay, and the Russians managed to stabilize the situation. The Russians managed to bring additional reinforcements and reserves in this direction. The Russians managed to counterattack the Ukrainians, to stabilize the situation in Sudzha itself, to defeat the Ukrainians in Kareneva, to destroy the Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group among the fields, and many other different statements from the Russian side that we summarize in one simple word: stabilization. Now let's talk about reinforcements. Yes, it's true, during the previous nights the Russians published significant number of videos. In this particular episode we can see a convoy of Russian soldiers from different battalions, from different brigades, from different forces that the Russians accumulated and concentrated and let's say brought from different lines. And as these forces were located in the vicinity of Kursk. In this video we can see another photo with a tank, with armored vehicles, with the different vehicles that were heading towards the line of combat contact in the vicinity of Sudzha. And of course the Ukrainians understand everything and they see everything. And you know that Russia, of course, maybe has less corruption than Ukraine, but Russia is very big and there are very big problems with roads. It's obviously the situation in the vicinity of Kursk, in many districts and oblasts and regions of Russia, poor quality of roads. And the Ukrainians, of course, they understand everything, and they understand that now it's time to start sabotage operations. And what the Ukrainians were conducting during the previous night: first of all, they began calling people all over the Kursk region, telling them that we are, during the call the Ukrainians were saying that we are the official authorities of Kursk region and we are asking you to begin immediate evacuation. And of course, when people see the situation on the ground, when people see the clashes all over the entire Kursk region, and when somebody calls them and tell them that we are the authorities of Kursk and we are asking you to begin evacuation, the next thing you would do is you would begin evacuation. And furthermore, to enforce this process, to force the Russians to evacuate faster and let's say massively, the Ukrainians began bombing the cities and the villages deep inside of the territory of Kursk region, mainly along the main supply road that goes, let's say, from Rylsk through Lvov to Kursk itself. So the road, the highway M2 and the highway E38. And the main purpose of that was to create panic and to force civilians to leave their homes, to leave their houses, and to start running away from the area of the combat. In this video, for example, we can see how the Ukrainians were bombing the roads, and of course the author of this video says that in this video we can see also Russian convoy with military reinforcements that got under Ukrainian fire and was destroyed, but we can't tell for sure whether it's true or not. The driver in the car was saying that there is a secondary detonation, and he made the conclusion that it was like ammo that was destroying and was blowing. We don't know for sure, but the thing is that after the Ukrainians start bombing the cities along the main road EM2 and E38, the Russians, the civilians, made the next thing. They began running away, and we have a lot of videos of how the Russians civilians were basically they filled the roads with their light vehicles, and basically the Russian civilians collapsed the Russian military logistic. The main roads were completely blocked, were completely filled with light vehicles that were heading from the line of combat contact from the area of clashes to Kursk and deep inside of the territory of Russia. And they basically blocked the road that the military forces were planning to use for the deployment of the forces. Of course, this is not something like significant problem that will lead to, let's say, fall of Moscow or fall of St. Petersburg. Of course it's not, but it will allow the Ukrainians to win additional time. And now it's the most important question: what is the reason and why the Ukrainians currently need additional time? I'll explain to you. The thing is that once again we need to return back to the main statement and the main narrative of the previous night of the local time. Is according to the Russians, everything was stabilized, the Ukrainians stopped offensive, the Ukrainians stopped moving, the sabotage and reconnaissance group of armed forces of Ukraine returned back to their positions, and according to the Russians, now the Ukrainians are trying to hold the territories they managed to capture as a result of clashes during the previous, let's say, few days. But there is one important thing that I would like to discuss with you. First of all, let's discuss additional gains. According to different mappers, the Russians were forced to fall back from the village of Snagast. The different mappers and different military experts reported that the Russians entered the territory. Furthermore, the Russians were forced to fall back from Viktorovka, Stara Sorochina, and Mala Loknya. This territory was also captured according to different mappers, and according to different mappers, the Russians were forced to fall back from Krasna Lokhnya. And that's it. And the Ukrainians stopped. After this progress, the Ukrainians stopped. But the thing is that the Ukrainians stopped not due to the Russian significant reinforcement or due to Russian significant number of counterattacks, or that Ukrainians suffer significant losses and they can't proceed further. No, the situation is much more simple and much more easier to understand. To understand the reasons of stop or slowing down, it's better to take a look at this video. In this video that was published by the Russian forces, we can see the redeployment of artillery forces and artillery system of armored forces of Ukraine closer to the line of combat contact and maybe even on the territory of Russian Federation. And this is the explanation, and this is the question why, according to the Russians, the Ukrainians were slowed down. Obviously not due to the significant number of reinforcement that stacked along the main roads due to the panic among civilians. The problem is that at the beginning of the Kursk offensive operation, the main Ukrainian artillery systems were located approximately, this is obviously approximate line, somewhere along this yellow line. And the Ukrainians began artillery preparation that allowed the Ukrainians to break the Russian defense belt and to dig in deeper as much as possible. And if we calculate the distance between, let's say, possible Ukrainian artillery positions in the vicinity of Yanakivka and edge Ukrainian positions in Mala Loknya, in this case the distance would be around 30 kilometers. And for example, if we calculate the distance between artillery positions somewhere in Alexeyevka, it's possible hypothetical position of Ukrainian artillery systems and edge Ukrainian positions according to different mappers of Ukraine control, in this case the distance is around 20 kilometers. And if we calculate the distance, let's say from the forest in Makhritsa, somewhere here, to, let's say, the edge positions of armed forces of Ukraine in Sudzha, this case the distance is more than 20 kilometers. And obviously it's impossible to support and additional gains of armed forces of Ukraine with this distance. It's very impossible. It's impossible. It's highly unlikely. Of course, you can redeploy forces, you can move further forces deeper, but there are very high risks that you will not get additional support from Ukrainian artillery, and you will be defeated by the Russians, because the Russians don't have problem with artillery, because you are moving closer to Russian artillery, not as far as possible, but as close as possible. So During the previous night, as I understand, the Ukrainians were mainly concentrated in the process of redeployment of their artillery systems, artillery forces, closer to the line of combat contact, basically as close as possible, and even on the territory of Russian Federation. As soon as the Ukrainians finish this process, and most likely they will finish this process, they have already finished this process by the morning of the 9th of August, because the only time when they can do this is just during the night period of time. They will continue their offensive, and probably today we're going to receive additional progress of armored forces of Ukraine, and we're going to receive additional clashes deep inside of the territory of Russia. So let's wait. Of course, we sooner or later we will understand whether it's my projections are correct or not, but as I understand, this is exactly what is happening right now on the territory of Kursk region. The Russian sources continue complaining that they managed to establish a few more cities under complete Russian control. If you remember, yesterday the Russians reported that they entered the village of Lukashevka. This small village was captured by the Russians, and this village used to be in the gray zone, at least according to different reports. And we have report that the Russians captured Svetnitsky Kazachok. And this morning of the local time, the Russians stated, for now without any geolocations, without any confirmations from reliable sources, just some posts of different military experts, that the Russians captured the village of Popovka and that the Russians captured the village of Alexandrovka. So we are not going to adjust the map. We're just discussing the situation due to how that we have report, and the lots of Telegram channels repeat that report in their own channels. Now let's move to Chuguyev to Kharkiv. The sources reported that during the previous few days, during the Ukrainian offensive operation in Kharkiv area and Kursk area, the Russians were of course trying to searching the Ukrainian headquarters and the positions of commanders as generals of those who are responsible for the mass in Kursk area, and the Russians managed to discover, and as a result of Iskander strike, that temporary position was destroyed. And later the Russians provided additional details about the generals and the officers that were destroyed as a result of that attack. And as you can see, there's a very powerful and very high ranked officers. And now let's move to Siversk direction. According to different mappers, we have additional progress of the armored forces of Russian Federation in Perezhne, and the first street was completely captured according to different mappers. Yet we haven't received geolocations that can confirm this, but let's wait. Most likely we're going to receive some. And now I would like to discuss with you the situation in Selidovo, Pokrovsk, in Pokrovsk direction. Yesterday we got a lot of updates from different mappers about significant progress of the Russians in Veselaya, Ivanovka, and Zhelana, in Grodovka, Novogrodovka, and many other different towns and cities in Pokrovsk direction. But something tells me, and most likely this is going to be like this. For example, during the previous 12 hours, the pro-Ukrainian mappers Deep State haven't published any updates about the additional progress of the Russians in this area. Usually they do these updates every single day at the same hours at the same time, but for some reason during the previous 12 hours they haven't let's say updated the map, but just the territory inside of Kursk direction, but nothing about Pokrovsk, nothing about Novgorodsk, New York. And as I understand, that was made for some reason, and the reason is that the special forces, special intelligence forces of Ukraine most likely ordered this map service to stop publishing anything about Pokrovsk direction, and to make a picture and to create a picture that the Russians were stopped everywhere, and then there is just one area where we can see significant progress, and this is Kursk direction, and the progress belongs to armored forces of Ukraine. So maybe I'm wrong. So anyway, we're gonna see this sooner or later, but maybe something like this is going to happen at least during the next few days, like say, to create let's say stable picture of that the Ukrainians is the only side that has advanced on the ground. Furthermore, according to different sources, during the previous nights of the local time, the Ukrainians made an attempt to cross the Dnieper estuary and to land in the Kinburn Spit. But that attack was repelled by the Russians. Ukraine suffered losses and were forced to fall back. I'll remind you that just a few days ago there was another attempt to attack Tendrat Spit, but that attack was repelled by the Russians as well. So as you can see, another area of, that was activated by the Ukrainians, and most likely they will make more and more attempts, and the near future is going to be very interesting regarding this territory. And that's it for this video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.